To remain updated with the latest business news, click on the bell icon.
Hello and welcome. You're watching Business Today. I'm Sakshi Batra, and on this edition, I'm going to be discussing with somebody very special the decoding of the fine print of the union budget and what it really means for the economy and largely the infrastructure sector. Joining in with me is Mr. Shailesh Pathak. He's the FICCI Infrastructure Committee co-head. Thank you so much, sir, for taking out time for this interesting discussion. And of course, this has been long overdue. I wanted to take your first comment on your reading now that you've got enough time to digest and decode what's really gone ahead in those budget, speech, and apart from that, the entire budget as well. What's your reading? Does it really provide the much needed booster shot for growth and the economic recovery that we've been all waiting for the budget to provide? And even though there's a marginal enhancement of the fiscal deficit, do you think that we can actually move ahead, with the clear focus on CAPEX, on the recovery of growth?
Thank you, Sakshi. As all of us heard the finance minister say, it is actually a continuation of last year's budget, really. And last year's budget was a 1 in 100 years budget, yes, which was wonderful for our sector. And the best thing about this particular budget is it's no surprises. It is just building up on a solid platform. So it's a 5-day test match budget. It's not a 2020 over budget.
All right, so that's an interesting anecdote to put, that it's not a 2020 budget, but it's actually a test budget. It has more foresightedness, more long-term vision. So that's futuristic in itself as well. Now, I want to also understand, what we were discussing before the budget as well. Before the budget, many of the economists were concerned about the uneven nature of the economic recovery. We were saying that, it's a K-shaped recovery. We have seen a bounce, but only the upper strata has really benefited in that bounce back. The lower of the strata of the pyramid is still very much impacted. Do you think the budget really addresses those concerns and will help in a way with this CAPEX to all those who were disproportionately impacted by the pandemic?
So there are two ways to look at this, actually. One is the macro that, 7.5 lakh crore. And if you add everything else, then 10.48 crores, which is 4% of GDP. Ultimately, that doesn't matter. What matters is the project executed on the ground, right? So if you really look at the last 1 year, let me talk about two success stories. Success story number one is that, 1 in 6 women in rural India has 19 crore households, and all of them are managed by women. Yeah. So 1 in 6 women had tap water, 5 out of 6 did not. And none of these women know English, huh? So today, in the last 2.5 years, from 1 to 3 in 6 women have tap water. Yes. And in the next 2 years, 6 out of 6. This is transformative for their lifestyle. Yes. Economists may or may not understand the pain of carrying water every day to your home from a river or a well. And I think this is the best use of taxpayer money, really, quite frankly.
Absolutely.
The second big example of a success story is the Purvanchal Expressway, which has connected one of the poorest parts of the country, Eastern UP, Western Bihar. And riding on the Purvanchal Expressway's infrastructure, so much more of economic activity and private investment and enterprise and job creation will come. That is why the multiplier effect of infrastructure. So I would say, let's get out of this 2.2x increase in 3 years. That's amazing and that's commendable. Ultimately, it's all about making the difference to the person who does not speak English.
Absolutely, sir. You pointed out at the right direction, because even after the budget, the one thing that most of the taxpayers or the middle class had to say was, there's nothing for me. I haven't got anything in the budget. So, of course, the finance minister has gone ahead. The prime minister has said that it's a people-friendly budget, and you will see the effects coming out later. I want to ask you to help all our viewers understand that even if it is a big, gunpowder of say 7.5 lakh crores, but how will it actually help the bottom, of the pyramid, on-ground situation and job creation, in say increasing the income and the earning potential, all of these things for the common man?
So again, I'd offer, the 3 themes that I noticed in the budget.
Yeah.
The first is logistics. And logistics is all about moving a person or a product from place A to place B in the least possible time and the least possible cost. So
Right.
suppose you are in, let's say, Bhadrak in Orissa, and you want to access the market in Nashik, in Maharashtra. How quickly can you send your product to Nashik from Bhadrak? If it takes 7 days, you've lost it. If it takes 2 days, you're really benefiting from that. So the national master plan for Gati Shakti,
Yes.
integrated logistics, is a large step in that direction. We had talked about this last year's budget also. So, and logistics cost and time was weighing India down. Suddenly, the common person, the woman and the man, trying to produce for a market will be able to access that market much easier. And I was part of one of the zonal breakout sessions for the Gati Shakti plan. It's fairly well conceived. And apart from the 16 ministries of the government of India, now state governments are coming on board. And I'm happy to see that an Ahmedabad-based Space Application Center, BISAG-N, is designing the underlying portal. So that's the logistics part. Then you have the green energy, circular economy, and urbanization part. And whether, all the viewers of your show effectively grew up in a city that was half the size of what it is today.
Yeah.
Right? And in 20 years, 2040, the same city you're staying in will be double today's size. So there's a welcome attention to urbanization, how to govern cities better, run cities better. And, just as a aside, this, Zoom call kind of thing is good for the pandemic. But once the pandemic is over, we would like to go and meet people and work out of offices. And that's when better managed cities will be wonderful. The last thing is, green energy, battery swapping, using digital means everywhere. And again, one story. I was part of the Business 20 of the G20 group of nations since 2016, and I had gone to Hangzhou in China to attend that. And on the way back in Shanghai, I went for a tour, and the tour guide very proudly, she tells us, this 24-year-old lady, that she does not need anything except her mobile phone. Yeah. Because she can do her Baidu search there, she can do her shopping there, she can do her payments there. And this is just 5 years ago. So I was thinking, when will this happen in India? And that was 5 years ago. Last month, digital payments in India were double of China. Yes. So that is the speed. And yet, who's this benefiting? The common woman, the common man. Right.
Absolutely. And you very interestingly talked about that story, which definitely helps us understand the plan at the top, what the government really has, and how will it trickle down to the bottom of the pyramid for sure. So the plan is great, which most of the economists have given a thumbs up to. The stock markets have given a thumbs up as well. 2 days in a row, we saw that sharp surge as well. But if I were to ask you, what are the risks to this plan? What now? Like now the announcement has happened, but how does it really get implemented? And what would be the risks?
Actually, that's the crux, right? If it's not implemented, it's not going to happen. And if you really look at the infrastructure sector in the cities, we've had 4 very positive developments. I call it the 4 N's: the National Infrastructure Pipeline, the National Monetization Pipeline, the National Bank for Financing Infrastructure Development, and the National Program and Policy Management Framework. How will you get it all together? And if you really ask, the NIP and the NMP are setting out what to do. The NABFID, the DFI, is setting out how to finance it. Now it's all about execution and how to get it done on the ground. Yeah. And I think the budget has done its bit. Now for the rest of the 364 days, all of us must put our back to it.
जो बजट में अनाउंसमेंट्स हुए हैं, जितने कैपेक्स की प्लानिंग की बातचीत करी गई है और स्पेंडिंग के ऊपर ज्यादा जोर दिया गया है, उससे उनके जीवन पर क्या असर पड़ने वाला है? तो खास तौर पर अगर उनके लिए अगर आप ये बता पाएं कि खास तौर पर उनके जीवन में अब क्या बदलाव आएगा इस बजट के आने के बाद?
जी, साक्षी, आपने बहुत सही सवाल किया। जो कोयम्बटूर में बैठे हैं या बेगूसराय में बैठे हैं, उनको इससे मतलब नहीं कि 7.5 लाख करोड़ की वृद्धि हुई कि नहीं, 3 साल में 2.25 गुना हो गया, ठीक है, लेकिन उनको क्या फर्क पड़ा? तो मैं 3 नजरिए दूंगा इसके। सबसे पहले तो ये फर्क पड़ेगा कि आप जहां से भी जाना चाहते थे कहीं भी, या कोई माल भेजना चाहते थे कहीं भी, उसमें लागत कम आएगी और गति बढ़ेगी। और प्रधानमंत्री गति शक्ति मिशन जो है, नेशनल मास्टर प्लान एंड लॉजिस्टिक्स, वो इसी के लिए बनाया गया है कि जो 7 अलग अलग माध्यम हैं, जैसे रोड हो गया, रेल, वायुयान, पोर्ट्स, इनलैंड वाटरवेज, मास ट्रांजिट ऑफ सिटीज एंड लॉजिस्टिक्स इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, इन सबको समेकित रूपरेखा से कैसे हम आगे बढ़ के बना सकें और क्रियान्वित कर सकें। और इसमें न केवल भारत सरकार के जो 16 मंत्रालय हैं वो शरीक होंगे, भाग लेंगे, लेकिन जो राज्य हैं जहां काम होना है और जो शहर हैं जहां काम होना है, वो सब इस कोऑर्डिनेटेड अप्रोच में समेकित रूपरेखा में भाग लेंगे। सो ये तो हो गई पहली बात। जिस चीज में आपको 7 दिन लगते थे और 100 रुपए लगते थे, उस चीज में आप 3.5 दिन लगेंगे और 50 रुपए लगेंगे। ये अपने आप में एक बहुत बड़ा फायदा है।
जी बिल्कुल, आपने सही कहा। जी,
दूसरी बात है शहरीकरण। आप जिस भी शहर में रह रहे हैं, वो जब आप स्कूल जाते थे तो वो आधा था आज के दिन का शहर, और अगले 15-20 साल में वो आज से दुगना हो जाएगा। तो वो शहर कैसे बेहतर हो, अच्छा हो। आज के दिन तो हम आप जूम कॉल पे बात कर पा रहे हैं, लेकिन ये जब वायरस खत्म होगा तब तो हम एक दूसरे से समक्ष में मिलेंगे, ऑफिस में जाएंगे, काम पे जाएंगे। तो ऐसे शहर कैसे अच्छे हों। और आप में से कई लोग विदेश के शहरों में गए होंगे, देखे होंगे, भला वो शहर इतने अच्छे क्यों हैं, हमारे शहर क्यों नहीं काम करते। तो इस बार पैरा नंबर 68 से 75 तक वित्त मंत्री जी ने शहरीकरण की बात की। और तीसरी बात कि आपके ही घरों में, जैसे एक उदाहरण दूं, आज से 5 साल पहले हम लोग वो पीले लट्टू लगाते थे, बल्ब। अब हम सारे एलईडी लगाते हैं, और उससे हमारी बिजली की खपत भी कम हुई है और अच्छी रोशनी आती। इस तरह की तकनीकी चेंज, डिजिटल इकोनॉमी जो फायदेमंद है। एक मैं किस्सा सुनाता हूं अगर आपके पास समय है। 2016 में मैं B20 मीटिंग अटेंड, ये G20 का अंश है, बिजनेस 20, B20 मीटिंग अटेंड करने मैं गया था चाइना के हांगझाओ में। और वापसी में मैंने शंघाई में एक टूर लिया, और टूर गाइड 24 साल की महिला थे। उन्होंने बहुत जोशो खरोश से मुझे बताया कि साहब, हम तो बस एक मोबाइल फोन लेके निकलते हैं सवेरे, उसमें हमारी सारी सर्चिंग हो जाती है, वहां गूगल नहीं चलता, बायदू चलता है, उसमें हमारी सारी शॉपिंग हो जाती है, और उसी फोन में हमारे सारे पेमेंट हो जाते हैं, कैश तो मैं रखती ही नहीं। 5 साल पहले की बात। मैंने सोचा पता नहीं भारत में कब ये होगा, हिंदुस्तान में कब ऐसा आएगा कि हम भी बोलेंगे कि हम फोन से पेमेंट कर रहे हैं। आप देखिए, पिछले माह चाइना से दुगनी डिजिटल पेमेंट्स हमारे भारत की हुई। तो ये तो है गति जो भारत में संभव है। अगर रास्ता सही हो तो तेज गति निश्चित है।
एब्सोल्युटली, तेज गति निश्चित है, और इसी उम्मीद पर ये बजट कायम भी है। और देखना ये है कि कितनी गति से अब भारत की जो अर्थव्यवस्था है वो आगे बढ़ती है और पैंडेमिक के इम्पैक्ट से आगे रिकवर करती है, ये देखना बहुत जरूरी है। और कितनी जल्द हम लोगों की लाइव्स नॉर्मलाइज होते हुए नजर आती हैं। कुछ सवाल आपसे इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर स्पेस के भी मैं पूछूंगी, क्योंकि आप खास तौर पर ऐसी कंपनी से जुड़े हुए हैं जो कि इंडिया की एक ऑलमोस्ट, उसको बोला जाता है मिरर इमेज है इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर की, एलएनटी से आप जुड़े हुए हैं। तो मैं आपसे जानना चाहती हूँ कि क्योंकि इस बजट में इतना ज्यादा फोकस इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर पे था, तो एलएनटी के लिए खास तौर पर क्या कुछ अपॉर्चुनिटीज, चैलेंजेस अब इस पूरे सेक्टर में इमर्ज होते हैं इस बजट के बाद?
मेरे विचार से मैं आज फिक्की की तरफ से बोलना चाहूंगा, क्योंकि एलएनटी के रिपोर्ट्स और अभी Q3 के रिजल्ट्स भी घोषित हुए, तो वहां अच्छा काम हो रहा है। और एक छोटा सा उदाहरण मैं दूंगा। मुंबई और अहमदाबाद के बीच में हाई स्पीड रेल बन रही है, उसकी तकनीक आज तक भारत में इतनी अच्छी और एडवांस टेक्नोलॉजी नहीं लगी। और रेल मंत्री जी बोल रहे थे, अश्विनी वैष्णव जी, कि हमारी जो गर्डर लॉन्चिंग मशीनरी है, उसमें एक एक गर्डर 60-60 मीटर का बन रहा है, जो तक कल्पना भी नहीं कर सकते थे हम लोग 10 साल पहले।
जी।
तो एज यू सेड, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर के क्षेत्र में काफी तरक्की हो रही है, और हमारी कंपनी और अन्य कंपनियां मिलके इसमें पूरा योगदान करेंगी।
एब्सोल्युटली, बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया हिंदी में भी हमारे सभी दर्शकों को समझाने के लिए कि बजट के आखिरकार उनके लिए मायने क्या हैं। Another thing that I really wanted to ask you, sir, was part of the infrastructure society and as this sector as well, there were some ongoing issues that the sector has been facing, be it dispute resolution or the pace of ordering. What do you think the budget will do to, resolve all these issues which have been, coming in so far?
Let me begin with a thank you note to the finance minister. In November, we had a large high-level conclave with the Department of Financial Services, the top bankers in the country, the top government officials, and we were industry representatives.
Yes.
And I was the first person to make a presentation on behalf of private industry, and we flagged the issue of bank guarantees.
Right.
I'm happy to say that, in the budget speech, finance minister has immediately implemented our suggestion of going in for surety bonds. And on the first, she said this, on the second, the orders were issued. So this is a receptive, quick action area. We wanted coordination and we wanted capacity because of the oncoming construction boom. Coordination is now getting ensured with the PM Gati Shakti. And not only in the government of India, as I said, but also in the state governments and the cities.
Right.
Capacity, there are two specific paras devoted in the budget speech to capacity for infrastructure and capacity for cities. And we are very happy to see that 5 regional centers of excellence will come up for urbanization. And this can only get better in terms of implementation. The third is on contracts and, as you said, dispute resolution. So we are getting there. In fact, we have been suggesting on behalf of the private sector that it's time to go for a construction law, like so many other developed economies have.
Right.
So that prompt payments happen, disputes are resolved quickly. The 1872 Act of Contracts is now not adequate.
Okay, understood. And lastly, I also wanted to understand, since the budget spoke a lot about CAPEX, infrastructure, even climate financing, but it hasn't given too many specifics right there. If you could help us understand how will the government be financing all of this? That is a critical, because to be implementing all of this, the government will also need a lot of funds to cater to all of these things.
Sakshi, the interesting thing is most of us are now happy that financing is no longer an issue.
Okay.
And for instance, the DFI that I spoke about in NAPFID, that is mandated to do 3 lakh crores in the next few years. The budget did announce sovereign green bonds. And this would be in the nature of public borrowing, and the money would be given to public sector units to implement climate friendly and climate mitigant projects. Is there a shortage of money for infrastructure? Now with 7.5 crores, the other interesting thing about the budget was that it is incentivizing state governments to the tune of 100,000 crores. And that is where the action is. That is where the capacity is needed. So all in all, I think finance is well taken care of. Implementation and more implementation should be our focus.
All right, implementation of what has been promised is going to be key as we look ahead. Thank you so much, sir, for sharing all these wonderful insights with all our viewers as to how the budget will be really changing the world around us and the economy going forward from here. It's been a pleasure, as is always, sir, speaking with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you like the video, do like, comment, share and subscribe.